Hi, everybody. Welcome again to the African Queen Mo Show with Susan and Queen Mo. How are you doing? Yes, I hope that you're going to join us today. Every Friday, we now discuss Kenyan politics. I invited you guys. We're hoping to start a bit earlier, but we're having I was having some technical issues. Today, we're going to be discussing the issues that have been going on the past 1 week. I think Kenyans are very depressed and stressed right now. Yeah. I wouldn't be wrong to say those things, would I? Yeah. That many of us, all of us, we are stressed, we're depressed, we're just like not impressed at all with what's going on. Okay. We can see that over the past few weeks, we saw that there was Albert Ojwang, we were discussing him last time, that we lost this young man on June 8th. Yeah, Albert Ojwang, he was basically lost his life in the hands of the police at the Nairobi Central Police Station and who knows where else. And basically, we saw that the pathology report indicated that he suffered head injuries, neck compression, other trauma, and things like that. And his death, therefore, which was initially claimed to be a suicide, eventually was discovered not to be, was, basically proven by the pathologist not to have been a suicide, but actually a murder. Again, hot on the heels of that, we just saw just the other day a protester, not even a protester, a guy who was selling masks to protesters. You know, those masks, those blue masks. He was just selling the masks to protesters. And here goes people dressed in police uniform, killing this man, shooting, not killing him, but shooting him at very close range. And apparently, he's a 22-year-old man, this young man who was shot. His name is Boniface Kariuki. He's a street vendor, a guy who's just a hustler. The people who voted in the current government, people who the government should be protecting. This police officer was actually filmed by the Associated Press reporter. Yeah. And he was shown live to have shot this guy. But I also saw that it looks like the lawyers are speaking a different story, literally. Again today, when I was watching TikTok, I saw that a young woman of about 19 years old was found unalived around Kasarani with apparently a victim of rape, and she was also murdered and her body thrown, I think, on the road or something. Okay. I think, a lot of young people are not feeling secure. Are we secure? And not even young people, women and men, there's nobody who's feeling secure right now. Meanwhile, it's raining hard. The economy is also raining, beating down on people's backs. There's no money circulating. Even businesses are, struggling to get customers. People, the money is not in circulation really. Yeah. People are tight. The budgets are tight. Many companies have closed. We know that. We know that many investors have left the country. Over 8,000 investors have left the country. As much as we keep hearing reports of people coming in to Kenya as visitors, I was talking to a friend of mine who does Airbnb, and she told me that she's spending more money marketing Airbnbs around the Kilimani, Lavington area. The area where you think that there's a lot of clients, actually the clientele has dropped, apparently. So meanwhile, we also see that independent policing bodies that are supposed to provide oversight and launch investigations into these deaths of people who are in custody and those protesters, they seem to be not providing accurate information, and therefore really cannot police themselves. They cannot evaluate themselves. They cannot, I think Susan is going to give us the right terminology, being a lawyer. Yeah. Meanwhile, the president has called for investigations and he's ordered the deputy inspector general to step aside, which he has. But Kenyans are not satisfied with that. They want him to actually resign. But apparently, there's a whole procedure to him resigning, apparently. And yeah, I guess Susan might explain that, or I might later. So, what is it? What is there? What are we discussing in summary? We're discussing the heightened state of insecurity and the heightened state of fear and panic amongst young people and also the older generation in Kenya, and especially in the city centers, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, large cities, because of police misconduct. The fact that one cannot trust the police who are supposed to be providing security to us, they're busy, trigger happy, shooting civilians in broad daylight, showing cruelty to protesters, and it's very, very, very sad. So we want to talk about maybe what can we do as citizens. What should the authorities actually be doing? The authorities, Akina IPOA, the judiciary, the victims' families, and also what can we do in terms of the reforms of the police? Yeah. And in terms of the international, the international bodies, although we don't know whether or not we can really trust them, because we have international bodies in the country. We have the United Nations there, we have Amnesty International, and these people, they should be actually pressing the government to stop and curb the violence and stop the fear, because really it's creating a very bad status in the country for anybody who has young people, young children, or youth as children, or if you're a youth yourself, you should be concerned if you're going into the city centers anyway, because violence can erupt anytime. Yeah, anytime. Oh, it looks like we've lost Susan. So let me put myself here on. Let me move her from the stage so that she'll come back later. So thank you very much, guys, for joining. I can see we have 2 people who are on our live stream. When Susan comes on again, when she comes back on, I'm going to also invite other people to come on. I invited you guys to come on Twitter, from Twitter pages, from my Facebook page, also from my YouTube channel, to join the live show. So thank you very much for joining us. I seem to have a halo behind me. Don't ask me where that's coming from. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of interesting. I don't understand really. It's something to do with the lighting. Let me see. Maybe try and see if I can lift that up a bit. So anyway, I'm actually in the UK as we speak right now. I'm in the country of Wales, and I am a concerned citizen of Kenya, and somebody who loves her country very, very much and worries about what's going on in the country. Really, I am worried about what's going on in the country. Uh, what do you think, is happening? Why are the police suddenly turning on the civilians? Are they trying to instigate civilian, conflict? Are they trying to do that? Because it would appear as if this is actually just deliberate. Because why don't they try to stop it? What is going on? Young people are feeling so insecure. Young people are saying, leave us alone. Allow us to do our work. Allow us to do our work and bring taxes to you. I think we have Susan back again. Susan, join us. Karibu sana.
Sorry, my apologies.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic. Um, what's happening in our country. We are, not happy about what we're seeing. Like we're saying, truth on trial. We feel like we're in the middle of this, really melodramatic sort of story, and it's completely surreal because the stories we are being told are so, they're so ridiculous, you can't even believe them. So there's a lot of mistrust, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of fear. The Gen Zs are forging ahead. This is the week they had said they were going to remember the victims of the protests that occurred last year, and culminating on the 25th of June. And so they have all these events that they have planned, which commenced on Tuesday, 17th of June. And on the so a number of things are supposed to happen. So on 17th of June, that is when our latest victim of police brutality um, was witnessed. But let me not say he's the latest one, because there was even a shooting in Thome where a police officer, he claims his gun went off, um, and it killed somebody who was in his car. So he claims that his gun went off, and the person that was unalived was also a young man, 24 years old. He was sitting in his car, and he was shot through the head by mistake. His gun went off from left to right. So the police officer must have been at the passenger door, and the driver, this young man, was sitting in his driver's seat. He was just running some errands. He was in a petrol station. I don't know how he encountered that particular police officer, but they claimed the police officer ran away. But I think he was caught later, and he said they were friends, and his gun just went off by mistake. That's a big concern, because that means the safety was off. Whether or not that gun has a safety, that's another problem.
Safety
And
valve.
really,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the safety,
Mm-hmm.
you're supposed to have yeah, it should not just be ready to shoot like that. That's a dangerous gun. Did it malfunction or whatever it is, if we are to believe his story? But of course, we know there's a bigger story behind that. So when we talk
Mm-hmm.
about truth being on trial, there's a lot of lies going on around, and it's affecting our lives in such a negative way. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, the story of Albert. I mean, since our last chat, more information has come out. The more we hear, the more puzzled we get. You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, when you think about it, later on they found the CCTV from the Gazi hospital,
Mm-hmm.
which sort of showed that Albert was actually deceased when they took him to the hospital. Um, and in fact, in the books of the hospital, they did record that he was non-responsive. He had no cardiac activity, and they noticed all the severe injuries that he had sustained. There again, the truth's on trial, but luckily we have two contradicting information. Of course, they were trying to make sure that um, it doesn't come out that he passed away in the police cells. So they were trying to obscure the actual scene of crime.
Mm-hmm.
And they did not want it to happen like in the police property. So that's why they rushed him to the hospital. But from their demeanor, even watching the video, the police who took him there were in no hurry. So it sort of suggests that they already knew he was no longer with us. So there are many things that point to that. So we had the video coming out, which sort of showed that he passed away about 1:35 a.m. And I was watching a clip on it, and it said um, when they drove to the hospital, they waited at the hospital until 1:59 a.m. So there was no hurry. Then his body was, in fact, the police themselves were the ones who were taking the body into the hospital. They stayed for about 10 minutes, and then they came out again with the body. And that's when the hospital recorded that he had rested. So the body was taken to city mortuary. And then after that, another twist in this story is um, the first police constable, the first arrest of James Mukwana. That gentleman, he decided, when he realized, this is what he says, that he was going to be the fall guy, he recorded a second statement. So his first statement was recorded on 11th June, and his second was recorded on 12th of June, and he claimed a different story altogether. According to this second story, he says that he was given instructions by the OCS, Samson Talam, who said he was acting on instructions from the DIG, the Deputy Inspector General, Eliud Lagat, and that he was ordered to discipline Ojwang once he was brought in, and to use some of the the people in custody to deal with him. So Albert was in the last cell opposite the toilets, and according to Mukwana, he was not supposed to be unalived. He was supposed to be disciplined. So here's the here that is what he claims. Of course, this whole story is being denied completely, and of course he'll have to be subjected to cross-examination. He was even seeking witness protection so that he could turn state evidence. He could now give evidence, and perhaps he was looking to reduce his his role in it, or the charge against him to a lesser charge. Because with somebody passing away in police custody, actually, James has been charged with murder. Reason being that he was involved in one way or the other, even though he did not perhaps strike Albert himself, but he was complicit to whatever happened. And that's called aiding and abetting. And when you aid and abet, it's as if you yourself have committed that offense. And of course, we know murder is life sentence, is a very, very serious crime. So other things that I picked up when I tried to look at, where the failings were. So maybe let me do some update again. So Mukwana was arrested. He has been charged.
Yeah.
He's in custody for another 21 days. The DIG, Salam himself, the OCS of the
So,
Central Police
Susan,
Station,
to
was
put some
arrested.
perspective, why don't I play that short clip on Mukwana?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that people have an idea who we're talking about. I think it will be helpful. Okay, I'm just going to be sharing my screen, guys. Here's Mukwana. What does he say? Oh, the sound is off. Sorry.
Central Police Station. In a damning statement recorded before the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, Mukwana has directly implicated OCS Samson Talam, claiming that he acted on instructions issued from the Deputy Inspector General Eliud Lagat. According to Mukwana, he was ordered to discipline Ojwang once he was brought in. This is his second statement to IPOA, having recanted an earlier version in which he claims he and fellow officers conspired to conceal the truth. And as Ben Kurino reports, through his lawyers, the officer is seeking protection.
A blow-by-blow account exclusively in our possession now sheds a new light on what could be the events of the night of June 7th, 2025. The night blogger and teacher Albert Ojwang died while in custody at the Central Police Station. The damning statement, recorded by detained police constable James Mukwana, directly implicates the officer commanding station OCS Samson Talam, alleging that he issued instructions to discipline Ojwang. Orders Mukwana claims originated from Deputy Inspector General of Police Eliud Lagat. This comes despite OCS Talam having publicly distanced himself from the murder allegations. In his detailed statement to investigators from the Independent Policing Oversight Authority IPOA, Mukwana narrates being summoned to the OCS's office during his shift. He was allegedly told, and I quote, "There is a directive from DIG Lagat. Do you know him? There are officers from the DCI headquarters bringing a suspect here at 8 p.m. Tell the inmates to discipline him a bit." When Mukwana raised concerns about what could go wrong, he says he was warned against questioning orders as a junior officer and told bluntly that disobedience could cost him. Later that night at around 9 p.m., a black Subaru pulled up at the station. Inside was a man in handcuffs, later identified as Albert Ojwang. Mukwana says he called OCS Talam, who confirmed that Ojwang was the suspect in question. Ojwang was booked into custody at around 9:20 p.m. and shortly after, the assault began inside the last cell opposite the toilet. Mukwana states that 4 inmates, Collins Ireri, Jill Amiton, Brian Mwaniki and Eric Ndambuki, were instructed to carry out the beatings after they were given 2,000 shillings to buy alcohol. As the beatings escalated, Mukwana claims he and another officer, Police Constable Kemani, rushed in to stop the torture. Ojwang was found bleeding, leaning against the wall. Mukwana says he immediately asked the Deputy OCS Samuel Nganga to take Ojwang to hospital. It was around 10 p.m. when he left for home. The following day, on June 8th, he began receiving numerous calls from colleagues asking if he had heard what had happened to Ojwang. When he reached out to Nganga for clarity, he was advised to call the OCS. OCS Talam reportedly brushed off his concerns, telling him things were not bad and that they were safe. But by June 11th, Mukwana had been summoned by IPOA to record a formal statement. He admits that in his initial testimony, he withheld the truth as part of a pact among the officers to cover up for one another. However, He later discovered he was being made a scapegoat by his colleagues. Haunted by guilt, Mukhwana.
Oh,
Hi,
sorry
Mary.
about that.
You're
Constable James Mukhwana, currently in custody.
Sorry about
over the
that, guys. Sorry about that. Let's go
Things
back to him.
escalated. Mukhwana IPOA to record a formal statement. He admits that in his initial testimony, he withheld the truth as part of a pact among the officers to cover up for one another. However, he later discovered he was being made a scapegoat by his colleagues. Haunted by guilt, Mukhwana says he returned to IPOA on June 12th and asked to record a second truthful statement. He was arrested and taken to Capitol Hill Police Station, where his second statement was taken. Mukhwana says Ojwang was not meant to be killed, but to be disciplined as per instruction of the OCS Talam. Through his lawyers, Mukhwana has now requested placement under witness protection, stating he is ready to tell the whole truth. Mukhwana's legal team says they won't be seeking his release on bail, citing concerns over his personal safety. The lawyers claim they have been trailed and intimidated by individuals believed to be police officers, and a formal complaint has been lodged at the Capitol Hill Police Station. Ben Kirui, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Apologies, guys. I was trying to give you a bigger screen. I was trying to make it a bit wider. Wow, this thing is convoluted. It's a really convoluted story. You know, now the blame game starts. Yeah.
Yeah. And don't
Yeah.
forget, when we talked last, during the last show, there was that theory that he had been picked up from the cells, taken to Karura and beaten there. And now we're getting a different story that actually the beating took place in the cells. And I believe that was a narrative. So now when we talk about, the truth being really elusive in this whole story, I'm just seeing that whatever statements are being made really are, one, a cover-up, two, to sort of try to reduce any consequences. Of course, they're trying to make sure that as much as possible that the death did not occur in the police station. But we're seeing that that's actually what seems to be more truthful, more the version that seems to be more accurate. Perhaps he was not taken to Karura Forest and beaten up there. He was actually beaten up in the cell. The issue that was raised about these inmates, I'm going to put inverted commas on that, because these guys that were, remember we were told in an earlier statement that Albert was in a cell alone when he banged his head and he committed suicide. That's what we were told? That we were told that he was in his cell alone. And then we're hearing this narrative that actually he was not, that there were some inmates, they're calling them inmates, who came in, who were put in the cell with him, and they were told to violate him, to beat him up. And now these inmates, apparently the question came up and said, what were those inmates doing there? Who were they? And they're saying that these gentlemen were there as under what they were calling a miscellaneous application, and that they were held for 5 days and released. Because the question was, where were they now after that? It's just like they seem to have disappeared after that. So it looks like they were deliberately brought in specifically to do what they had been instructed to do. They were given alcohol to drink, according to Mukhwana. And if you're in police custody, you're not supposed to be, taking alcohol. So they were given alcohol to consume, so they would be inebriated sufficiently, and so that they could, cause the harm they were supposed to. Don't forget, again, we have the issue of the missing CCTV. They said that the cameras were not working. And yet there's a requirement that the CCTVs must be working in a police station. In fact, that was one of the things that they were brought to task over, that the CCTV must be working for the safety of those who they're in custody, and also for the safety, even for the police officers, so they have to be monitoring what is happening.
Mhm.
A
In this day,
major police
the
station.
people are even wearing body cam. Yeah. You see that the police, even in the US, where there's a lot of
Yeah,
discrimination and problems with the police, mishandling
yeah,
civilians, you see they've even introduced body cams. So the fact that
yeah,
they even CCTV camera, why would they put it off? And then again, the
yeah,
question, like you're asking, what happened to that Karura Forest story? What happened to it? And it sounds, I mean, who even came up with it, man? It's a very detailed story.
yeah,
So I was wondering to myself, does Karura Forest not have CCTV cameras? Because considering that I was looking I was looking at the news and I was seeing that I think it was the president of, was it one of the countries, Scandinavian
mm-hmm,
countries,
yeah,
he had gone there to
yeah,
exercise just recently, maybe like the same
yeah,
week, or yeah, he was there exercising, and I think he ran,
mm-hmm,
was it 25 kilometers or something? He ran a lot of kilometers anyway in that same
yeah,
forest. So there have
yeah.
to be CCTV cameras because so many people go there. They say they have thousands of tourists, like 30,000 tourists going into Karura Forest. I
Oh
wondered to
yeah, it's really
myself,
busy.
yeah, how would they take somebody to the forest and unalive them without being
Yeah,
seen by other people? Unless it's a special side of the forest where there's no access to anybody else.
yeah.
Yeah, where
That
it's just
story of Karura
a
Forest.
torture
Don't
chamber.
don't forget. Mm,
Mm,
don't forget, it was like in the early hours of the morning that it occurred. That was after 9 o'clock, after he had been brought in and stuff. And usually, Karura Forest, I think they close at 7. Um, but whatever it is, it doesn't sound very plausible. What it seems to me, and this is my own theory, is that they were trying to make sure that they were covering up the fact that he passed away in the police building, in police custody, in the police cell, because of course the questions they would have to answer are more serious. Um, they're trying to distance themselves from the offenses that occurred. Also,
okay.
Mufana himself, the
But you
first
see, the
story he
person who
gave.
is Susan, again to interrupt you, sorry. The person who's implicated is the Deputy Inspector General of Police. He was the
Yes,
one who was said to have gone to the forest with his driver,
yes.
with this one
Mm.
man and tied in handcuffs with his driver. I mean, isn't that a very serious allegation, though?
What they said, a
Compared
senior
to,
police officer. They didn't say it was him, but they said
oh,
a
they didn't
senior
think it was
police
him.
officer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
the
Oh, okay,
driver.
so
People
people are
have
assuming
witnessed
it
it.
was him. Guys, thank you
Yes.
so much for watching. Thank you. We can see you there in I can see the eyes on there. I can see one person. Before that we had between 2 and 3 people in and out. No, we haven't ignored you. No, we're not having a monologue here with Susan. We're welcoming you, and I've provided a link. It's there in the StreamYard. You see streamyard.com. There's a link there. I believe that you can also chat with me on Facebook and on YouTube and on X, because I invited you there. I sent you a link. Yeah, welcome. Join us. Let's talk about this issue. Yeah. If you're interested in Kenya, if you're Kenyan, you're interested in Kenya, or if you're, knowledgeable about what's going on or concerned, please feel free to join us. You can join us in studio or you can join us in the comment section. And no, you don't have to show your face if you don't want to. You just have to just type in your comment and that's it. Yeah. We will respond. We will address it. Thank you so much. Karibuni.
Yeah. Welcome. Yeah. Um. So yeah, I was telling you about those fellows who were in the cell with Albert. And my theory is, and I was listening to some human rights activists talking, Virunga Horton and the others on the show, and they're saying that they interact a lot with the police, and they have done their own reports and they have their own information. So one of the things they did say is that they have um, like information that the police do interact with the hardened criminals, and they weaponize them to do dastardly deeds on their behalf. And so it sounds to me like these three gentlemen, these people who are in the cell with Albert, were brought there intentionally from outside, and brought in to do something, and then they disappeared. And that's why they were saying, oh, they were there on a miscellaneous application. I don't understand what on earth that is about, and why they should be there for 5 days and then be released coincidentally, after the deed is done. So they were not found in their cells and arrested. I think they had to look for them and arrest them when the information came out. Again, the issue of the CCTV, messing with it. One of the civilians arrested actually is the one who messed with the CCTV. He was given, I think, is it 2,000 or 3,000 shillings, and they were given. These are the assailants. I want to call them that, or suspected assailants, were also given some money on top of the alcohol that they were given to drink, according to Mukwana. So what we're going to see as this story unravels is a lot of blame shifting, and so everything has to be interrogated more deeply, because people are trying to get out of the mess and distance themselves from the problem. The other thing that I wanted to highlight in terms of what else had happened, I think as we speak, there are about 7 people who have been arrested as a result of the investigations of IPOA. There are 3 police officers, that's Mukwana, Deputy OCS Nganga, and OCS Talam. Deputy OCS is the one who took the body of Albert to Mbagathi Hospital. They're looking, in fact, they've managed to arrest one of the constables who accompanied him to Mbagathi, and then there are the civilians, the 3 civilians who are in the cell, plus the one who tampered with the CCTV. So again, when we're talking about truth being on trial, why interfere with the CCTV? Why try to change the story? What are you hiding? And why? And making the citizens even more worried about that not being a safe space. Remember the stories, the conversation that Albert had with his friend. His friend said, "Oh, Central Police Station is one of the better police stations in Nairobi. You're okay. You're safe." Remember that telephone conversation? I think you played it in our last time show. You played it. So that's not the expectation that something like this could happen
Yeah, his
in the
friend
police
his friend
cell.
was so super confident, but he didn't sound
Yeah.
confident. He sounded very shaky and worried.
Yes, he was
Hmm.
scared. I mean, obviously they had
Hmm.
intimidated him one way or the other, and he'd never been in a police cell. The other thing that I wanted to highlight about this is that something else has emerged, and that is in the course of the investigations, Talam's phone was taken by the IPOA investigative team. And interestingly, the lawyers, people randomly were sent messages from that phone by somebody trying to solicit money. And one of the people who received the message was actually one of his defense lawyers called Cliff Ombeta, where he said he had a request for 80,000 shillings. And also messages sent to Talam's family members and stuff like that. So the question is, how does a phone that was in the custody of an investigative team continue to now start committing another crime, being used to commit another crime of soliciting money from well-wishers and people? I mean, that is really, really scary. So the investigator assistant, he's called Abdiraham, was to appear in court and to explain how that happened, because it's just a bizarre story in the middle of everything. Again, we know truth was on trial when we got one story about his cause of death, which was contradicted by the postmortem report, where the doctors clearly said no, he could not have self-harmed. The injuries to his head are not consistent with that. There are injuries to all parts of his head, and the blood, the way the bruising looks, and also the fact that he had injuries to other parts of his body. These injuries were actually inflicted by other people. So that's another untruth we have been told. So what else do we know about that? I just want to pick up some of the misspeaking. We're going to because we're in the post-truth era and people don't want to say the word lies, but we will say that people were less than honest, or they were disingenuous. So one, even at the time of arrest of Albert from his father's home, he was not given sufficient information. The father was also not given sufficient information. He specifically asked who was the complainant, and he was not given a response. All he was told is that Albert had done something that was offensive to their boss. So we know that in the backstory that there was an early arrest of somebody else who was connected with the material, the false information that Albert was supposed to have, shared, and they were investigated, and released, and somehow in the course of that, it seems that Albert's name came up. But you see, even if it's a cybercrime, the law is very sort of unclear, and it can be used or weaponized to stop or interfere with our constitutional right to freedom of speech. So whatever the case, what I've observed, or when I've tried to check and see where that information came from, he was not the originator of the false information. He just shared something that he saw, and he became, was roped into it. So he's not the one who created the false information. He shared it, and now it has been he was been chosen as the fall guy by whoever, this other fellow who was arrested earlier, and he became a victim. Because don't forget, Albert himself was very, very active on social media, and he was very vocal against on issues of corruption and excesses of government and all that. So I
Yeah, it
think
seems.
they may have noticed him and his actions, and he had a big following. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then
Was he not
the
working
other,
for Susan? Was he not working for Tuko? Isn't that where his article was published, in Tuko?
he
Tuko
just,
News.
I'm not sure about that. What I know, he was not the originator of the of
Yeah,
the
he wasn't. Yeah,
false
he wasn't.
information. He was
Yeah.
not the originator. Yeah.
No, he wasn't.
So
No.
of course, the cause of death, again, that's an untruth. They covered up the cause of death. They tried to throw us, make us look in a different direction, which was absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Now the DIG was summoned to the IPOA, and he claimed innocence. The interesting thing about this summoning is that he spent 3 hours. He was only with the senior officers of IPOA, that is the chair and his immediate, his second in command, and
Mm-hmm.
senior investigators, and it was all hush hush. There was no reporting that came out of it, no cameras, no newsmen, nothing. So they sat him there, and what is known from it and what is reported in the news is that he denied responsibility. He said he, he, what he knew is it was on a communication. He was not involved in what happened at the police station. He was not there. He was off duty, and that he had nothing to do with it. And so when you think about it and you think about what Mukwana is saying, that actually he's the one who his boss, his immediate boss, Mukwana's immediate boss, the OCS of the police station, was saying, that is, the OCS of the police station was Talam. He was saying that he has instructions from. This is on the video that you showed earlier, from the DIG. So he actually gave a name to Mukwana. And so there's that link there. And so now we have two contradictory stories where the DIG himself, when he's being questioned, he's saying he knows nothing about it. The only thing he has is a communication, and he never, he's not involved. That in Mukwana's statement, it is the DIG who instructed the OCS what to do, and the OCS instructed Mukwana what to do.
Now, Susan,
and this was
Susan,
after.
let me stop you a little bit and ask you a question. I heard that specific, should I say, that line of command or that line of communication actually does not happen. It's not supposed to happen. The DIG is not supposed to be communicating with the OCS. That line of communication is not supposed to be happening at all. At least that's one of the things I overheard or heard. Have you heard anything like that? Maybe you can look it up, do a bit of research on that. But as we are talking about Albert, thank you very much. Let's wind up and then now go to this other guy who was shot on the street. Yeah, but I really like the fact that you have so
I just want
detail. It's nice to hear the detail though, because you're following the case closely, obviously.
Yeah, what I'm just trying to pick up is that the truth on trial on Albert's case, and then we'll talk. I've almost done with that. So okay, then there was the pretense that procedure was being followed, and there was that pretense that the procedure was being followed, and yet he was set up with a criminal element that was denied. And there was a claim he was alone. I've mentioned that. And he was in the cell. And then we find out later, actually, he was assaulted by others who were in the same cell as him. There's the question of how these three people got into the cell. There's a story there. There's information that it's possible they were one of these outside connections that the police have. Then there's tampering of the CCTV, the story, the Karura story. And then the other thing, and the deception, is the DIGs purporting to step down. That was really called into question in the National Assembly. They had actually asked for a report from IPOA on the issue, and they were not happy with that report at all. And they said no. The Murkomen has been summoned to appear before the National Assembly. In last week's discussion, these security people had all been summoned by the Senate, but now the Murkomen in particular has been summoned before the National Assembly. They were not happy with that report at all by IPOA, and even the fact that the DIG claimed to have stepped down. He wrote a letter saying he has stepped down. And yet, that is 2 weeks after the controversies, 2 weeks after people have been saying he needs to be questioned, he needs to be brought in and questioned, he knows something about this. He is the complainant. How come nobody's asking him any questions? Although they're not saying he's the complainant, but you can see from the implication that he is the complainant. And what is emerging is that he's admitting he is the complainant if the news reports are supposed to be taken on face value. And then the other disturbing thing was when this news of Albert came out, and the police and we have a photograph of them on the steps of, I think, I'm not sure which building. So we have the IPOA chair, Hassan, we have the Inspector General, and we have the DIG, that the DIG is Eliud Lagat himself, standing together defending the police, and yet he was a complainant. So the parliamentarians were saying the optics was terrible because this guy was a potential suspect, and yet he was standing there in front with the people who are supposed to be investigating the case. And those optics looked, they just built more distrust and convinced us more that these people were not serious about it. Even when they were asked, even the Murkomen himself was like, no, he will not step down. I think the IG said also that he was not going to, they're not going to do anything about it. He will not be asked to record a statement. But obviously, with the pressure from public, something has had to give. Then again, the latest case of Boniface. Boniface, that's really tragic. He was there, like you said, selling mass on a specific street. And the videos were, and by the way, it's not just Associated Press. Even the international press have that video because they were out there and they had their cameramen and their journalists, following the protest. And they took that clip. So it's all over. I've seen it on BBC, DW news, that clip. In fact, the first clip I saw on YouTube was actually DW. That's that Germany. I think that's the German press of actually how they bullied
Josh Weiler.
yeah. How they bullied Boniface. Boniface was, on his own, minding his own business. He was selling the mass to the protesters, and they bullied him, slapped him, and then this guy just stands and shoots him. It was just something that was so shocking to observe. And now, what is so interesting is that the response of the lawyer. They said, it's mistaken identity. He's not the one who shot. That a bullet was shot but not come from his gun. Then they said, actually, they were rubber bullets. It was a rubber bullet. And they said, the images you people saw were AI generated.
Yeah.
Now these are the defense lawyers. Of course, we know that the response of the netizens was fast and furious because they were saying, how can you say things like that? How can you say it was a rubber bullet? And I tried to do some research on the rubber bullet. It's not exhaustive, but it does say that the rubber bullet can actually cause serious injury and even death. It's not actually the safer option. It can cause injury and even death and serious injury. But the questions we need to ask ourselves is, when the doctors did the surgery on Boniface, they said they removed something from his, a foreign body from his body, from his head, because it was he was hit in the left side. Left side is this side, yeah. He was hit this side, and it was like a bullet. It was a bullet. And then they had to do a second surgery and they removed fragments. So I checked, I asked Google, so if what happens to a rubber bullet when it hits its target? And it said it collapses, so it doesn't disintegrate. So, but a live bullet would disintegrate. But not a rubber bullet. It would collapse and can be reused. So
wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Let me show that video, Susan. Let me show the video. Yeah, let me show it. I hope it will show clearly. My goodness, this thing, like, it broke my heart. It was horrible. It's warning, guys. It's got graphic content. Warning. Oh, let's play it.
I have been reporting on extrajudicial killings in Kenya for over a decade. But I've never witnessed anything like this. People have been demonstrating for 2 weeks after a blogger died mysteriously in police custody, calling it the latest incident in a long history of police brutality. On Tuesday, people gathered in downtown Nairobi planning to march to the police headquarters to protest, but that descended into chaos. The peaceful protesters were met by men on motorbikes, armed with whips and batons, who attacked them as they were marching towards the Kenya police headquarters. And then, the most shocking moment, 2 police officers met Boniface Karaoke, a vendor who was selling surgical masks to demonstrators. One of them slapped him. The other one pointed a rifle on his head and fired from inches away before walking off. Boniface Karaoke fell on the ground on a pool of blood as protesters rushed to try and do first aid to him, where he was taken to the hospital in a critical condition. He has since undergone surgery and still in intensive care unit. The police officers were arrested and they'll be taken to court.
You heard that?
Yeah, and there's so many.
What people can do to
actually,
each other. How we can, this thing has, sorry, Susan, this thing has shocked. I've seen TikTokers from other countries in Africa, including Ghana, telling Kenyans to stop it. Yeah? How dare they? How dare we take life so lightly? How dare we treat each other that way? How do we expect people from outside the continent to treat us well when we can't also treat each other well? We teach other people how to treat us. I think we talked about this last time, but that's exactly what he was saying. That he was so surprised to see Kenyan police turning on civilians. And after this, I heard civilians saying, I think it's time for us to arm ourselves. So this can actually result in guerrilla warfare. It can actually start some sort of mafia war. It can start some sort of, undercover this is how Mau Mau started. Yeah, when people feel threatened and they don't have any weapons, they are completely harmless. They're going to try and if people cannot trust the police, they're going to do their best to defend their families and themselves. So I won't be surprised if people start arming themselves. It's very sad. It's very, very sad. The police are supposed to be trustworthy people. I just did a video, by the way, but this is one of my personal videos where I was showing, going into downtown Cardiff, where I live here, and the police cars are all over the street. If this was in Africa, we would be worried. If this was in Kenya, my country, and you see a police car in the middle of the street, you'll be like shivering. But, here I was taking video of them, and they were just sitting in their cars, just providing security. That's their job. They're a service. I don't know what it is. I think that our police service must have been infiltrated by people who are not really police. Just like we were warned by Martha Karua, because I don't really believe that this is the training that the police get. And I also saw on several social media sites where some of the policemen were actually, one of the policemen was crying because he was so upset about his fellow officers behaving this way towards Raia. He didn't want to be associated with the police with his colleagues who were doing this to Kenyans. And then we also saw videos and pictures of some police who were actually protecting protesters from their own colleagues, from the brutality of their own colleagues. Did you see that policeman? And then Kenyans were saying that they want the telephone number of this guy so that they can, they can salimia him and give him something, some M-Pesa kidogo, to encourage him. Yeah, and I think that Kenyans should do that. That I think that rogue police officers should realize that there's a cost that comes with it. Yeah. Anyway, Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, there's this picture, this photo I want to show you. It's in today's newspaper, Daily Nation. It's from an article by Pamela Sitoni. It's called "Media and Citizen Journalists Strike a Blow for Democracy." And they've got this brilliant photograph, and which would be very difficult for the police to explain. I don't know whether you can see this. Can you see? Can you see this photo? This photograph is a policeman walking alongside the goons with their rungus. I mean, these guys, what are they doing with rungus? He should have arrested every single one of them if they were not part of the, if they, they were not. What are they doing with weapons?
So they're coming. He's actually walking besides people who are
Yes,
armed, and the protesters are
yes.
not armed. The real protesters are not armed,
No,
but
these
the
are rungus.
goons are armed, and they're getting police protection.
Yes, they have big. The rungu. A rungu is for it's a Kiswahili word that means this big a baton. And this is a big baton. It's like a baseball bat. It's the length of a baseball bat. It's not a small truncheons. This is an actual like a bat, and that is, you can see these are civilians in their own clothes walking alongside a policeman who is armed. He's got his full uniform. For riot gear, and he's walking alongside these guys. That's one picture that has been taken. These are clearly, hoodlums. And then we have another one here, return of militias and political violence, standard not holding back at all. This, at the top there, you're seeing killer cops. But here are actually, what happened in, this is the motorcycle goons. Apparently, they were paid money to come into the city. So they were, and they gathered. And in fact, some of the earliest pictures we saw of the protests was actually these guys on their motorcycles, just driving randomly in the quiet streets. So they were used. They had like 2-3 people on them. Like at least 2 pillion riders plus the rider or so, something like that. And you can see that even from this picture. I'm not sure whether you can see the photo very well. Yeah, this is a photo taken, and there are actually videos of them terrorizing and chasing and stuff like that. So this is return of militias and political violence. This is what we're seeing, and actually there's a theory. Um, I heard, there's a theory that it was deliberate. The intention was to disrupt the peaceful protests so that they'll be aware of saying this is too dangerous, so we're not going to allow them. So it was a setup of sorts. They tried to set it up, but I don't think they succeeded because the Gen Zs have said we're still going on with our program. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the churches are the religious institutions. Friday is the mosques. Saturday is the Seventh-day Adventists, and Sunday is the churches, the other churches. They're supposed to, sort of recognize the movement and the work and stuff like that, and the people who died as a result of the protests last year. So everybody has a role to play in this, and they have a plan. They have coordinated. Even the police have come up with they have reported that they're going to there's going to be the march, there's going to be the protests, and people want to mourn. It's going to be a memorial. They want to mourn the young people who passed away. And of course, we know that some of them have never been found, even their bodies. They don't know where passed away and missing. There's some people who have not been seen since then. So the IG has come up with a plan. He says that there'll be hundreds of police officers deployed to Nairobi's CBD and other key areas. Roads will be closed. There'll be warning to goons, and yet we know these goons. There was thought, or there was some news going around that actually the goons were paid by a politician
Yeah,
to come.
yeah. I have a video,
Yeah,
Susan. Let me show these goons so that
yeah.
people know what goons we're seeing. This is on some of our colleagues' videos. This is Maisha TV showing the goons. Huh? These are the goons in Nairobi here. Hey, my gosh.
Nairobi's Central Business District CBD protested turned violent as demonstrators demanding justice for slain blogger Albert Ojwang and opposing the 2025-2026 finance bill clashed with motorbike riders suspected to be hired goons. The confrontations, which erupted mid-morning, brought chaos to the CBD, with burning motorbikes, looted businesses, and running battles between protesters and police.
Just minding their business. The police are watching the goons terrorize innocent people. One of them has been caught. He was the one who beat me up and took my phone. But I managed to get my phone back. This is a shameless government, a ruthless, shameless government.
The protest, largely driven by Kenya's youth under hashtags like Justice for Ojwang and Reject Finance Bill 2025, was sparked by the controversial death of a 31-year-old blogger Albert Ojwang in police custody on June 8, 2025. An autopsy revealing strangulation and assault contradicted initial police claims of suicide, fueling outrage. Demonstrators also targeted the finance bill, criticizing its proposed tax measures as burdensome, echoing last year's deadly anti-tax protest.
Okay, I think we get the general point. Those definitely look like goons to me. First of all, why are they riding? How many of them? How many of them on a motorbike? 4 of them? Is that even legal? Isn't that overloading? First of all, they should be stopped by who are these people? NSTA, the National Transport Sector. They should be the police, the traffic cops. Where are they? How come they're allowing people who are riding 444 on motorbikes? And yet you try that. You try doing such a thing in a car in Nairobi. Oh boy. Oh, Susan, this is crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
depressing.
you know what is so
It's just depressing. Sorry, the news is not very good in Nairobi right now. It's not.
You know what is so sad about it, Queen Mo, is that apart from Albert, there were 15 others who were admitted, who were rushed to Kenyatta National Hospital. One of the victims of a gunshot wound was actually a Kenyatta University student, and his colleagues came actually and got him from Kenyatta National Hospital and moved him to the Kenyatta University Hospital. He was shot also. So what the doctor said, the one who was giving the report, the one who had on Boniface, he said that they had 16 casualties, and they had some had gunshot injuries and others blunt force injury. And they said of them, one of them, they didn't know who he was because he had sustained a fracture to his head, blunt force injury to the head, which had caused a fracture. So they couldn't communicate with him. So when you see those guys and you look at the weapons that they had guns, the police had guns, and the goons had rungus. So the people who have been admitted in, or rather, not all of them were admitted. Of them, I think 7 of them were admitted, 9 discharged. And those who were admitted, they actually had to have surgery. Apart from Boniface, they had to have surgery too. So I think the video I watched, I think they had done 3 of the 7 surgeries. So it was not just them, and you can imagine that these are the ones that went to Kenyatta National Hospital. The other hospitals are not reporting whether they had people rushing there, or the clinics, or the, you know, who had injuries, even soft tissue injuries as a result of any assault occasion. That young lady you saw in the video, I'm sure she had some soft tissue injuries if she had to wrestle to get her phone back, and whatever she went through. She said she was beaten. There's a reporter called Dennis Okari who did an interview, and he was talking about the intention being really to mar the protest, to reduce attendance, and to change its face in terms of saying it's a security risk, it's this, it's that, our women, and the target actually was women. So they were trying to beat up a few women and harm them seriously, so that, you know, people say, no, these protests are okay. When government says we're not going to allow this anymore, they say, fine, we don't want them anymore. And of
Yeah,
course, the
yeah,
looting
it's
videos
amazing. They will
were
actually
showing the
target
police.
women. They will target
Hmm?
women. So
Yeah, it
crazy.
was deliberate. Yeah, yeah. And then the police were the ones looting. There are videos of the police walking away with,
With
with
laptops.
laptops. Yeah,
Oh,
they were,
you
doing the
guys.
circulation.
Mm-mm.
So this, like, they had certain instructions for 17. Those guys who were, dispersed out there, they had certain instructions. Going back to what the lawyer was saying, and by the way, the lawyer has quit because he
But
was plagued by the Gen Zs. He was asked very many questions and he couldn't answer them, and you know how they are. Say, how can you say it was a rubber bullet? How can you say it's mistaken identity? How can you say that the
ah,
images are
the
AI
same lawyer
generated?
is not my
Hmm?
client. Just quit.
Yeah, he said he
I
recused
saw him
himself
there.
because he had received
The
over
pressure.
1,000 messages. He had
Whoa.
received over
Well done,
1,000.
Gen Zs, man. Well done.
Yeah, they said, how can you say things like that,
Yeah.
you
How?
know yeah. And what is so ridiculous about it, Queen Mo, when you say mistaken identity,
Hmm.
those
Mhm.
police are deployed to specific areas. It's not random. So whoever was commanding that operation knew exactly where each policeman had been deployed to.
Mhm.
Secondly, they can do the ballistics and find out which, what happened to your bullets and where did they go. Don't forget the surgery. There were
Mhm.
remnants of bullets removed from
Mhm.
Boniface's head. So there's
Mhm.
evidence.
Mhm.
When you say something is AI generated, and the people who picked up uh, Boniface and to rescue him, the people who saw with their own eyes what happened, you know,
Mhm.
they saw what happened. They didn't try to hide it at all. It was a
Mhm.
completely shameless activity. And
Mhm.
there are ways of verifying whether or not something is genuine or it's AI generated. So, I
Mhm.
mean, even why those lawyers would speak that way was very shocking, and very insensitive.
Yeah,
Um,
I was listening, Susan, to there's this other analyst I really listened to. His name is Chris Kumakucha. He came up with this very interesting perspective that uh, he's trying to explain, because he has a bit of background with the police. His father having been one, and I think maybe he has insider information. But he was saying that the person, the bullet that was used to shoot that guy is coming from a weapon that is not found amongst the police. It's a pistol. What was used was a pistol, and it's difficult to trace the bullet from a pistol. It's very difficult to associate the bullet with the carrier from a pistol, as opposed to the regular rifles that they have. And he said that pistol is the one that is used for hunting. It's the kind of thing that's used for hunting by hunters. So it's I think you need to go and watch that Chris Kumekucha thing. Go and watch it. and familiarize yourselves, you guys. You know, go and watch Chris Komakuche. He's somebody I really follow. He does very thorough investigative research, which I really like, and analysis. But he tried to explain how they'll be able to cover themselves because of this one thing, that the weapon that is used, you know, in that particular incident is not one that is found with the police. And that's why now I ask myself, doesn't it then mean that perhaps the police are infiltrated by people who are wearing their uniform, but it's not them? And that's the reason why a lot of police are also confused. They're like, who are these people? What's happening? Some policemen are taking orders and they don't understand why they need to take orders. You know, they're being threatened when they try to follow the law as they are taught. Once they try to follow, you know, instructions as they know that they should, they are threatened. You know, so I think that there's a problem. There's actually a big, huge problem. And you know, in Kenya, if we can't trust the police, it's going to make Kenya a very unlivable place. It's going to affect our economy. It's going to affect how tourism, even local tourism within Africa. It's going to affect our own people. Our own people are going to be on edge. It's going to be hard for people to go and be productive citizens working out there, producing the tax money that the government needs to run its businesses. So the sooner that we put an end to this, the better. So, Susan, yeah, okay. I think maybe we could wind up now because I know in Nairobi it's quite late. It's almost midnight, isn't it? I still have my
Yeah,
computer set to midnight in Kenya, to Kenyan time. Yeah,
yeah. Actually,
yeah.
even as we say that truth is on trial, these institutions are all on trial. I mean,
Oh,
we
yeah.
have the IPOA, where we're
Hmm?
feeling the preference. They're protecting the DIG. They didn't, you know, they've not given much information about him. He has denied. That was information that was sort of leaked. That he has denied. He's claiming innocence and saying that he doesn't know anything about it. The police also as an institution, um, and um, and the way they're trying to cover up this is not helping at all. So it looks like IPOA and the police are not trustworthy. Parliament itself, we know they're, you know, they dance to the piper's tune. We've seen that in the past, and even whatever they're saying now, can we really trust them to push the issues through so that the citizenry, their constituents, can be protected? Because this is really what we're seeing is a complete breach of the constitution. Um, you know, even if you think about the alleged offense of Albert, was that freedom of expression? Was that something that the constitution protected him from? You know, and I read an article, a scholarly article on it, and saying that the Cybercrimes Act is to some extent creating offenses which are infringing on our constitutional right, freedom of expression, and also invading our privacy. So these are some of the issues and considerations, and saying that it's very easy to weaponize those offenses to control people, to get them to stop dissent. Really sadly, I saw we were talking about the East African region and how our current leadership do not want to tolerate any different opinions from theirs. And I saw the Rwandese opposition leader has also been arrested. So now we have that happening in Tanzania. We have it happening in Uganda. We're finding that you know, excessive use of force from the powers that be in Kenya, the arbitrary arrests, you know, and we've seen that sort of thing happening even here with Rose Jerry. And apparently, by the way, her case, she was acquitted because they could not establish, or released because there was no, they could not establish that she had actually committed any offense. So that's what happened with Rose Jerry. Remember the young lady who had done the public participation tool on the finance bill? How she was arrested and kept for 4 days, and then taken to court, and Maraga, the former Chief Justice Maraga, argued that this, whatever she's been charged with, is not an offense known in law in Kenya. So, and I think the court upheld that position. So that's what we're having now. Institutions are also on trial. Truth is on trial. They're failing us. The EACC, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, also is also letting us down. Parliament is letting us down, and let's hope the courts will not let us down when they hear the cases. I think that's it. So we all have a role to play in all this, because this is our legacy. This is what we can leave to the generations that come, to make sure that these institutions work the way they are intended to work. Right now, they are operating suboptimally, and as Queen Mo said, it's not all individuals working under these institutions that are, are not who have an issue. It's not all of them. It's just the some, the ones who we see in the news, who are making these institutions. They're saying in English, one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. And sadly, they're the people who are really, really visible. And like the DIG is very, very visible. That's the Deputy Inspector General. And to answer your question,
but the IG is not that visible.
Yeah, to answer your question about the chain of command, it should have gone from IG. IG. In fact, they're saying that as a complainant, he should not even have involved himself in contacting anybody. If it was under investigation, it should have been the IG who would have been the one coordinating that. But you can't be the complainant and you go and complain to your juniors, So the argument was that, it should be the other way. So the IG really should have, been involved.
He should have complained up to his seniors.
Yes.
Not down to juniors. Okay, that makes sense.
I heard an argument like that. Yes.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day,
there's something I want to share. Oh, sorry. Is it okay if I wanted to share also the issue of the demonstrations in Kasarani. Are you guys aware about this? I mean, today there were demonstrations in Kasarani from what we saw, but it wasn't actually shown on, regular media. When you're watching, there's a demonstration dropped in Kasarani, Nairobi, following the brutal murder of a young girl. Actually, she was 19, by a man who is suspected to be Yeah. So there were today around Kasarani there was that issue. I think there's a lot of news and information that we're not getting. I think there's a lot of information and news that is being shared that we don't know about, that is not being shared globally. Like, for example, I also went online to ask Google and other like ChatGPT and places like that about this. They don't know about it. It's too recent, and it's not as long as it's not on mainstream media, it's not being captured. And this is the reason why social media is so useful. TikTok is very useful. That's how you get to know what's happening. Yeah. You get to know what's happening in the world because people are capturing with their phones. There's so many cameras around and people are sharing images that the mainstream media cannot even keep up, even if they wanted to. How do you keep up with millions of people with phones? 3 million people with phones out here. How? And you're just like maybe just a few 20 people there in the newsroom. It can't happen. Yeah. So I think that we should also rely on social media and also be careful and make sure that we just double check our sources. But I did see that was one of the incidents that happened today. Just one of many, including people's bodies being found in different places. You'll see people with undercover cameras being afraid to show what's going on. But you see these very brave people, running around showing us what's going on the streets. Yeah, there was apparently somebody who was caught and almost lynched, stealing. So now there's heightened insecurity. Some people are being caught stealing. I'm part of a WhatsApp group, for example, in a gated community in Mombasa, where they were showing somebody who is stalking people's homes at night. And many people have CCTV cameras. So you guys, all I can say is that I'm not in Nairobi at the moment, but I can just advise the Kenyans that I know. Watch your back, be alert. Right now is not a good time. Yeah. And it's not a good time anywhere in the world, actually, unfortunately. So even if you run away, we just have one country and we should really try our best to keep it as safe as possible. Because even those politicians and leaders who are instigating all of this criminal activity, where are they going to go? Where can they go? They can go nowhere. Even if they go and buy houses in Dubai and everywhere else. Can you see what's happening right now in the Middle East? Can you see? Can you see with your own eyes what's happening? Eh? You guys, don't spoil your home. Don't spoil your home country, please. Let it be safe. Let it be secure. Let us be able to have at least a place that we all can trust one another, because you people are not going to be in office forever. I'm talking to now the leaders. You're not going to be in office forever. You're going to have to come back and live with the society. What kind of name do you want to have left? What kind of legacy do you want to have left? And if you yourself don't suffer it, your children will reap the sour grapes. That's the sad truth. Yeah. So I think that we should all be responsible. And thank you so much, Susan, for being with us today. It's been a long day. Don't want to keep you here too long. Thank you, guys. For those of you who have stayed with us, thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for watching. And if you're going to join us after the live show and watch the recording over the weekend, please share your comments with us. Let us know what you think. I'm looking forward to hearing from some of you, especially who have been with us. Yeah. So we'll see you perhaps over the weekend. We're still trying to see how to bring in the geopolitics show, because the person who was supposed to present was out sick. But I'm always so happy because Susan is always reliable, always there. Thank you, Susan. So much detail and so much knowledge we get to know. Those of us who are in the diaspora, we know what's happening at home. Yeah. So share the videos and let's contribute and let's talk. Don't be afraid to talk, because this is public participation and it's all good. We are researchers, we are smart, we know how to frame issues so that you don't get in trouble. Yeah. We're talking about what's in the news, what's already published, and we are also proposing solutions and seeing how we can go forward. Yeah. So have a good evening. Thank you so much for watching and take care. Thank you, Susan, so much, and have a lovely week ahead. For those of you just joining us now, we're just saying goodbye, and you can watch the video once it's actually processed in a few minutes. I'm just going to end the show, and then you can watch it from the beginning to the end. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Kwaherini. Keep safe. Keep safe, guys. Keep safe. Kwaherini. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye, Susan. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah.